She was abandoned pregnant for his mistress. 4 years later, she returned as the billionaire he now works for. The conference room door opened. Dante Castellano stood up, straightening his outdated tie, hand extended for a handshake, ready to meet his new boss, ready to grovel for the job that was his last chance before bankruptcy swallowed him whole. But the person who walked through that door made his hand drop to his side like dead weight. Mira, 4 years older, completely transformed, designer suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent, diamond wedding ring catching the light, walking with a kind of confidence that made the air shift around her. She wasn't alone. A distinguished man with salt and pepper hair walked beside her, his hand resting protectively on her back. Both wore matching wedding bands. Dante's face drained of all color. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Mira's voice cut through the silence like a blade through silk. "That's Mrs. Moreau Castellano to you, Mr. Castellano. Have a seat." His knees buckled. He grabbed the edge of the conference table to steady himself. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. The last time he saw Mira, she was begging him in the rain, 7 months pregnant, homeless, with nowhere to go. He had watched security escort her out of their building. He had closed the door on her and never looked back. And now she was standing in front of him, not broken, not desperate, not begging. She was the CEO of the company that just bought his dying business. She was the billionaire whose signature was on his employment contract. She was his boss. The man beside her pulled out her chair. She sat at the head of the table. The power position. He remained standing next to her, his presence a silent statement. Dante collapsed into the chair across from them, his entire body shaking. "Let's discuss the terms of your employment," Mira said, her voice perfectly professional, as if she was addressing a stranger and not the man who had destroyed her life 4 years ago. "Have you ever been told you weren't good enough? That you didn't belong in someone's world? Have you ever been thrown away like garbage by someone who promised you forever? What if I told you the person who destroyed you could end up working for you? This is the story of a pregnant violinist kicked out by her real estate mogul husband for his mistress. A woman who lost everything. Her home, her career, her dignity, her sense of self. But this is also the story of how she built a billion-dollar empire from nothing. How she became the one thing her ex-husband fears most, his boss. If you've ever felt invisible, underestimated, or discarded, you need to hear this. Because what I'm about to tell you will prove that your lowest moment is just the setup for your greatest comeback. And if you believe that people who throw you away deserve to watch you rise, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment saying, "I rise," and tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe to Cedar Light Love Stories because this transformation will give you chills and restore your faith in second chances. But to understand how Mira Castellano went from homeless and pregnant to billionaire CEO, we need to go back. Back to the night her world shattered into a million pieces. The rain had started as a drizzle, one of those late autumn rains that New York does so well, the kind that soaks into your bones and makes you grateful for home. Mira Castellano stood in the penthouse she had shared with her husband for 5 years, her hands resting on her swollen belly, watching the city lights blur through the floor-to-ceiling windows. 7 months pregnant. Finally, after 2 years of fertility treatments that had left her exhausted and emotionally drained, she was carrying their daughter. She had found out the baby's sex that morning and spent the afternoon in a tiny boutique in Soho, buying the surprise she couldn't wait to give Dante. A pair of pink ballet slippers, so small they fit in the palm of her hand. Size newborn. She had wrapped them in silver tissue paper and placed them on his desk in the study. Tonight, she would tell him. Tonight, they would celebrate. Tonight, everything would be perfect again. The elevator chimed. Mira's heart lifted. She turned toward the sound, a smile already forming on her lips. But when Dante walked in, he wasn't alone. A woman followed behind him. Tall, blonde, wearing a dress that probably cost more than Mira made in a month back when she still performed. But it wasn't the woman that made Mira's smile die. It was the lawyer, Dante's attorney, Marcus Webb, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing an expression that said this was business, not pleasure. "Dante, what's going on?" Mira's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Who is this?" Dante loosened his tie. He didn't look at her. "This is Vivian Ashford, my publicist, and soon to be much more." The words didn't make sense. Mira looked from Dante to the blonde woman to the lawyer and back again. "I don't understand." Vivian stepped forward, and that's when Mira saw it. The slight swell of her belly under the expensive dress. The protective hand she placed over her stomach. The same gesture Mira had been making for months. "She's pregnant," Mira whispered. The room tilted slightly. 4 months, Dante said, still not meeting her eyes. "We're having a boy, an heir." The word hit Mira like a physical blow. An heir, not a baby, not a child, an heir. "But I'm pregnant with your baby," Mira said, her voice breaking. "I'm your wife. We're having a daughter, Dante. I was going to tell you tonight. There are ballet slippers on your desk. Did you see them?" "I saw them." Dante finally looked at her, and what Mira saw in his eyes was worse than anger. It was indifference. Cold, flat indifference. "I need you to leave, Mira." The words hung in the air. Mira waited for him to laugh, to tell her this was some kind of cruel joke, but he just stood there, waiting. "Leave? This is my home. Our home. Dante, I don't understand what's happening right now. If you're having an affair, if you made a mistake, we can work through this. We can go to counseling. We can figure this out together. There's nothing to figure out." Vivian moved to stand beside Dante, claiming her space. She slipped her hand into his. He didn't pull away. "We're in love. We're building a life together. You're an obstacle that needs to be removed." Mira looked at her husband, the man who had proposed to her in a small concert hall after she performed Vivaldi, the man who had promised her forever. "How long?" she asked quietly. "How long have you been with her?" 18 months. 18 months. A year and a half, while Mira had been going through fertility treatments, injecting herself with hormones that made her sick and emotional, while she had been supporting his business expansion, playing violin at investor dinners, charming his business partners, believing in their future. While she had been loving him with everything she had, he had been building a different life entirely. "I gave up Vienna for you," Mira said, and she hated how desperate she sounded, but couldn't stop the words from coming. "The Vienna Philharmonic wanted me. I turned them down to stay here with you. I turned down Berlin. I stopped performing professionally because you said you needed me to focus on supporting your career. I gave you everything, Dante, and I'm grateful." Dante's voice was clinical, like he was discussing a business transaction. "That's why I'm offering you a generous settlement. Marcus has the papers." The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Divorce papers, already drawn up, already signed by Dante, just waiting for her signature. $50,000, Marcus said, sliding the papers across the coffee table toward her. "Plus, you can keep your personal items and your grandmother's violin. Mr. Castellano is being very fair, Mrs. Castellano. $50,000, 5 years of marriage, 2 years of fertility treatments, a lifetime of dreams, $50,000. Where am I supposed to go?" Mira's voice cracked. "I don't have anywhere to go. My mother is dead. My grandmother is dead. I have no other family. This is my home. This penthouse is solely in my name," Dante said. "I had the lease rewritten 6 months ago. You have no legal claim to it. You have no legal claim to my business, my assets, or anything I've built. You'll have $50,000 and whatever you can pack in the next 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Mira placed her hand on her belly, feeling her daughter kick. The baby could sense her distress, was moving restlessly inside her. "I'm 7 months pregnant with your child." "With a child," Dante corrected. "Vivian is pregnant with my heir. There's a difference. If you want to keep your baby, that's your choice. If you don't, that's also your choice. Either way, it's not my concern. Get a paternity test after it's born. If it's mine, I'll pay court-ordered child support. That's all you're getting from me." Each word was a knife. Mira felt herself bleeding in ways that don't show on skin. "You can't do this. You can't just throw me out. I'm your wife, not for much longer." Dante pulled out his phone and made a call. "Yes, I need security up to the penthouse. I have someone who needs to be escorted out. Mira backed away from him like he was a stranger. Because he was a stranger. The man she had married would never do this. That man had held her when she cried after failed fertility treatments. That man had kissed her forehead and promised they were in this together. That man had told her she was the most beautiful thing in his life. But maybe that man had never existed. Maybe she had been in love with a ghost. 2 security guards arrived within minutes. Thomas, the doorman who had smiled at her every morning for 5 years, and another guard she didn't recognize. Both looked uncomfortable. Thomas wouldn't meet her eyes. "Ma'am, you need to leave the premises," the second guard said quietly. "Can I at least pack my things?" Mira's voice was barely a whisper. "You have 20 minutes, Dante said, checking his watch. "Make it count." Mira walked through the penthouse in a daze. She grabbed a suitcase from the closet and threw clothes into it. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip anything. She took her grandmother's jewelry box, the few photographs she had of her, mother and grandmother, some sheet music that was older than she was. She went to the study and grabbed the pink ballet slippers from Dante's desk. Evidence of a future that would never happen. When she emerged from the bedroom with 2 suitcases and her violin case, Dante was on the couch with Vivienne, his hand on her belly, whispering something that made her smile. He didn't look up, didn't watch Mira leave, didn't say goodbye. The security guards took her suitcases. They escorted her to the elevator. As the doors started to close, Mira looked back one last time. Through the open door of the penthouse, she could see Vivienne standing. In the living room that used to be Mira's, already claiming her space, already erasing Mira from the narrative. The elevator descended 40 floors. When the doors opened to the lobby, the rain was pouring. Not a drizzle anymore, but a full storm. The kind that soaks you to the bone in seconds. Thomas set her bags just outside the building's entrance. "Do you need me to call you a cab, Mrs. Castellano?" Mira checked her purse. She had $37 in cash. Her credit cards were maxed out from when she had helped Dante's business through a rough patch 6 months ago. He had promised to pay her back. He never did. Her bank account had $347. Dante had stopped depositing her monthly allowance 2 months ago. Another sign she had missed. "I'm fine," Mira lied. She grabbed her bags and stepped out into the rain. Behind her, the glass doors of the luxury building locked. She looked up at the 40th floor, at the windows that used to frame her life. The lights were still on. She could imagine Dante up there, already moving on, already forgetting she existed. The rain soaked through her coat within seconds. Mira started walking. She didn't know where she was going. Just knew she couldn't stay there. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The divorce papers will be delivered to your grandmother's old address tomorrow. Sign them within 7 days or I will contest everything and make sure you get nothing. Don't try to contact me again. You're dead to me." Mira read it twice. Then she blocked the number. Not that it mattered. Dante had already blocked her on everything else. She walked through the rain for hours. Her feet were blistering in shoes that weren't meant for walking. Her suitcases felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds each. She tried calling the few friends she had left from Juilliard, but numbers were disconnected or went to voicemail. She had let those friendships die when Dante said he needed her to focus on being his wife. Another thing she had given up for him. By midnight, Mira found herself in Queens, in a neighborhood she didn't recognize. Her entire body was shaking from cold and shock, and grief so overwhelming she couldn't process it. She saw a 24-hour diner and stumbled inside. The warmth hit her like a wall. She collapsed into a booth, her wet clothes leaving puddles on the vinyl seat. A waitress approached, looking concerned. "You okay, honey?" "Coffee, please," Mira managed. "Just coffee." The waitress brought her coffee and didn't comment when Mira made that single cup last 3 hours. She sat there searching apartment listings on her phone. Every single one required first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit, and proof of income. She had none of those things. Around 3 in the morning, the waitress came back. "We're closing soon, honey. Do you have somewhere to go?" Mira lied and said yes. She paid for her coffee with precious cash, left the diner, and stood on the street corner trying to figure out what to do next. She spent that first night in her grandmother's old car. It was a 15-year-old sedan that barely ran, but it had 4 wheels and a mostly intact interior. She drove to a hospital parking garage where she could blend in and parked in a dark corner. She climbed into the back seat, pulled her coat over herself like a blanket, and cried until there was nothing left inside her but emptiness. The next morning, Mira woke up to sunlight streaming through the dirty car windows. Her back was screaming from sleeping curled up on the back seat. Her neck was stiff. The baby was kicking furiously, protesting the uncomfortable sleeping arrangements. She pulled out her phone. An email was waiting from Dante's lawyer. The divorce papers, as promised. She opened the attachment with shaking hands. $50,000 total. 4 years of marriage. All the business connections she had helped him build when he was nobody. All the emotional support that had kept him going when his company almost failed 3 times. $50,000 and a gag order. She wasn't allowed to speak publicly about their marriage, about his affair, about anything. If she did, she would owe him damages. Mira set the phone down and placed both hands on her belly. "I'm sorry, baby girl," she whispered to her unborn daughter. "I'm so sorry you're stuck with me. I don't know how I'm going to take care of you. I don't know how we're going to survive. But I promise you, I promise I will try." The baby kicked again, as if in answer. Mira took a deep breath. Then another. She was still breathing. Her heart was still beating. That meant she could survive 1 more day. And then another, and then another after that. She just had to figure out how. If your heart is breaking for Mira right now, I need you to do something for me. Smash that like button if you've ever felt abandoned. Drop a comment saying, "I rise" if you believe people can come back from rock bottom. And subscribe to Cedar Light Love Stories, because what happens next will restore your faith in second chances. Trust me, Mira's story is just beginning, and the transformation you're about to witness will give you chills. Because sometimes angels appear in the most unexpected places. The next 3 months were an education in survival. Mira learned things she never thought she would need to know. She learned which parking garages had security that didn't patrol at night. She learned which fast food restaurants would let her use the bathroom to wash up without buying anything. She learned how to make a box of granola bars last a week by eating only 1 per day. She learned that peanut butter eaten straight from the jar was cheap protein. She learned that water from public fountains was free. She was 7.5 months pregnant now. Her body was changing in ways she couldn't hide anymore. Her pants wouldn't button. Her shirts were too tight across her growing breasts and belly. She had no money for maternity clothes, so she wore the same oversized sweatshirt every day and hoped no one looked too closely. The morning sickness never stopped. She would wake up nauseous, stumble to whatever public restroom she could find, vomit until her throat was raw, then spend the rest of the day feeling dizzy and weak. She knew she wasn't eating enough, knew the baby wasn't getting proper nutrition, but she was doing the best she could with nothing. Mira tried to find work, but who wants to hire someone who is visibly pregnant and has no permanent address? She applied to restaurants, coffee shops, grocery stores. Every application asked for an address. Every interview ended the same way. "We'll call you." They never did. She had $347 when Dante kicked her out. After 3 months of buying the cheapest food possible, paying for the occasional night at a hostel, when the cold became unbearable, putting gas in her dying car, she was down to $92. Her car broke down on a Tuesday. Mira was driving to a different neighborhood, looking for a new place to park for the night, when the engine just gave up. Smoke started pouring from under the hood. The car shuddered, made a terrible grinding noise, and died right in the middle of an intersection. Cars honked. Drivers yelled. Mira tried to restart the engine, but it wouldn't turn over. She managed to push the car to the side of the road using strength she didn't know she had, her pregnant belly making the effort nearly impossible. When she finally got the car out of traffic, she collapsed against it, gasping for breath, feeling the baby thrashing inside her. A mechanic quoted her $1,200 to fix it. Money she didn't have, money she would never have. So the car sat on that street corner for 3 days until the city towed it. Her suitcases were in the trunk, her grandmother's jewelry box, her mother's photographs, her sheet music, all of it taken to an impound lot she couldn't afford to retrieve anything from. Mira was left with the clothes on her back, her grandmother's violin, her phone, with 8% battery and no charger, and $60 in her pocket. She had officially hit rock bottom. That night, she walked. She didn't know where she was going. Just walked, because staying still meant confronting the reality that she was homeless, 8 months pregnant, and had absolutely nothing left. The rain started around midnight. Not a gentle drizzle, but a torrential downpour that soaked through her sweatshirt in seconds. Lightning split the sky. Thunder rattled her bones. Mira walked through it all, her hair plastered to her face, her shoes squelching with every step. The violin case clutched against her chest, trying to protect it from the rain, even as she herself was drowning in it. She found herself in Manhattan, in one of the wealthy neighborhoods she used to visit when she performed at private events. The streets here were clean. The buildings were beautiful. Everything glowed with prosperity and safety, and all the things Mira used to take for granted. She passed a boutique hotel, all glass and warm light. Through the windows, she could see well-dressed people in the lobby. Dry floors, a different world from the one she was drowning in. Her vision started to blur. Whether from rain or tears or exhaustion, she couldn't tell. Her legs felt like lead. Her back ached so intensely she thought her spine might snap. The baby was pressing on her bladder so hard she thought she might wet herself right there on the street. She leaned against a wall to catch her breath, and felt the world start to spin. Her knees buckled. She slid down the wall until she was sitting on the wet sidewalk, rain pouring over her, completely and utterly defeated. "I can't do this anymore," she said out loud to no one, to God, to the universe, to her unborn daughter. "I can't keep doing this. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry, but I can't." A car turned onto the street. Mira expected it to drive past like all the others, like every person who had seen her struggling and looked away, like every door that had closed in her face, like Dante walking away without looking back. But the car slowed, then stopped, right in front of her. The window rolled down. A man's voice, gentle and genuinely concerned, cut through the sound of rain. "Are you all right?" Mira looked up, squinting through the downpour. She couldn't see his face clearly, just the outline of someone in an expensive car stopping for a woman who looked like exactly what she was. Desperate, homeless, at the absolute end of her rope. "I'm fine," she lied. The words tasted like ash in her mouth. "You're sitting in the rain. You're soaked through. You're clearly pregnant. You don't look fine." "I said I'm fine. Please just go." She didn't want charity, didn't want pity, didn't want to be looked at like she was pathetic, even though she absolutely was. The man opened his car door and stepped out into the rain. He had an umbrella. He walked over and held it over Mira, blocking the rain even as he got soaked himself. "My name is Alexander Moreau. I own the Meridian Hotel down the street. I recognize you. You used to perform at private events in this neighborhood. You played violin at the Rothschild wedding 2 years ago. I was there. You were extraordinary." Mira looked up at him properly now. Recognition flickered. She did remember that wedding. Remembered playing Pachelbel's canon as the bride walked down the aisle. Remembered a man who had approached her afterward and complimented her interpretation. "Mr. Moreau," she whispered, "please let me help you. Let me get you somewhere warm and dry. I don't have any money. I can't pay for a room. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to let me be a human being who helps another human being who clearly needs it." Mira wanted to say no, wanted to protect the last tiny shred of pride she had left. But she was so cold, so tired, so completely broken. And the baby. She had to think about the baby. Okay. That single word took everything she had. Alexander helped her to her feet. He was gentle, careful of her pregnant belly. He guided her to his car, opened the door for her, made sure she was settled before closing it gently. The interior was warm. The seats were leather and soft. Classical music played quietly from the speakers. It felt like a dream after months of nightmares. Alexander got in the driver's seat and turned up the heat. "As a blanket in the back seat. Please use it." Mira reached back with shaking hands and pulled the blanket around herself. It was cashmere. It probably cost more than she used to make in a month. She wrapped it around her trembling body and felt warmth for the first time in what felt like forever. "When was the last time you ate?" Alexander asked, pulling into traffic. Mira tried to remember. "Yesterday? The day before? I don't know. When was the last time you saw a doctor?" Silence. The answer was too humiliating to say out loud. Alexander's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. "We're going to fix this. All of it. I promise you." "Why?" Mira whispered. "Why would you help me? You don't know me. I know that you're a musician in crisis. That makes you exactly my responsibility." He glanced at her. "My mother was a concert pianist. She died when I was 16, but before she passed, she made me promise." "Something," she said. "Protect the music, Alexander. It's the only thing that lasts. I've spent my life trying to honor that promise." Mira felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She seemed to cry constantly these days. Alexander drove in silence, giving her space to process. They pulled up to a beautiful building. Modern, glass and steel. Elegant, but not ostentatious. The Meridian Hotel. "This is where I live," Alexander said. "I have guest rooms. You can stay as long as you need." "Mr. Moreau, I can't." "Yes, you can. And you will. Because I'm not leaving you out there to die in the rain." His voice was firm but kind. The voice of someone who had made a decision and would not be argued out of it. They took an elevator to the top floor, the penthouse. But this penthouse felt completely different from the one Dante had kicked her out of. This one felt warm, lived in. There were photographs on the walls, a child's backpack by the door, sheet music on a piano, evidence of an actual life, not just a showpiece. "The guest room is this way." Alexander led her down a hallway and opened a door to a bedroom that was bigger than some apartments Mira had lived in. There was a king-sized bed with fluffy white linens, a private bathroom, windows overlooking the city lights, and by the window, a beautiful, upright piano. There are towels in the bathroom, clothes in the dresser that should fit, various sizes. Help yourself to anything. The kitchen is always stocked. And please, Mira, rest. You look like you haven't rested in a very long time. Why are you doing this? The question came out as a whisper. Alexander smiled gently. Because a long time ago, someone helped me when I needed it most. I've been looking for ways to pay that forward ever since. Get some sleep. We'll talk in the morning. After he left, Mira stood in the middle of that beautiful room and felt the weight of the last 3 months crash over her. She walked into the bathroom. It had heated floors, a shower with multiple shower heads, towels so soft they felt like clouds. She stripped off her wet, dirty clothes and stepped into the shower. The hot water hit her body, and she started sobbing. Great, gasping sobs that echoed off the marble walls. She cried for everything she had lost. For the girl she used to be who thought love was enough. For the life growing inside her that deserved so much better than this. She cried until the water ran cold. Then she dried off with those cloud-soft towels and put on pajamas from the dresser. They fit. They were clean. They smelled like lavender fabric softener instead of car interiors and public bathrooms. Mira climbed into the bed. It was so soft, she almost cried again. She pulled the covers up to her chin and placed both hands on her belly where the baby was finally settling down, as if she too could sense that they were safe. "We survived tonight, baby," Mira whispered. "That's something. We survived." For the first time in months, Mira fell asleep, feeling safe. And in the morning, she would wake up to discover that sometimes angels do exist. They just sometimes drive expensive cars and remember the violinist who played at a wedding 2 years ago when the world still made sense. Mira woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then reality settled back in. Alexander Moreau's guest room, the stranger who had saved her from the rain. The kindness she still didn't understand. She sat up slowly, her body aching in new ways. Clean aches, not the bone-deep exhaustion of sleeping in cars and on sidewalks. The baby shifted inside her, a gentle roll that felt almost peaceful. There was a soft knock on the door. "Mira, are you awake?" I made breakfast. Whenever you're ready. Alexander's voice was gentle, respectful, not demanding, just offering. I'll be out in a few minutes. Mira found more clothes in the dresser, maternity clothes, in her size. How did he know? She pushed the question aside and got dressed. Soft leggings that actually fit over her belly, an oversized sweater that was clean and comfortable, both making her feel almost human again. She followed the smell of food to a bright kitchen. Alexander stood at the stove cooking eggs and toast. The table was already set. Fresh fruit, orange juice, coffee that smelled like heaven even though she couldn't drink it while pregnant. Good morning. I hope you slept well. Better than I have in months. Mira's voice was still hoarse from all the crying. Please sit. Eat. You need your strength. Alexander plated the food and set it in front of her. They ate in comfortable silence. Alexander didn't pry, didn't ask invasive questions, just made sure her plate stayed full and her glass never emptied. Finally, Mira couldn't take it anymore. Why are you doing this, Mr. Moreau? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Alexander set down his fork. His eyes were kind but sad in a way that spoke of his own pain. 2 years ago, my wife Emma died of cancer. It was a long battle, brutal. She was sick for 18 months before she finally let go. I'm so sorry. During that time, music kept us alive in ways you'll never know. My daughter Elise, she was 8 when her mother got sick. She stopped eating, stopped talking, stopped being a child. But she would listen to music. We would play recordings of concerts. We would attend performances when Emma was strong enough. Those were the only times I saw my daughter smile. Alexander looked out the window, his expression distant. The day Emma died, there was a violinist playing in the hospital lobby. Some kind of volunteer program. You were playing Schubert's Ave Maria. Emma heard it from her room. She smiled. She said, "That's what heaven sounds like." Those were her last words. Mira's throat tightened. I remember that day. I remember playing at the hospital. When I saw you last night, sitting in the rain, looking like the world had broken you, I couldn't drive past. I just couldn't, because you were there, making beauty in the worst moment of my life. Now, I'm here for you and yours. I'm pregnant. The baby's father doesn't want us. I know. I can see you're pregnant. And I don't care whose baby it is biologically. What I care about is that you're safe, that you're healthy, that you have a chance to survive whatever hell you've been through. I don't deserve this kindness. Yes, you do. You deserve so much more than you've been given. Alexander's voice was firm. Now, finish your breakfast. Then we're going to see a doctor. The prenatal appointment was thorough. A kind doctor named Dr. Chen examined Mira, ran tests, did an ultrasound. The baby appeared on the screen, tiny and perfect, moving in ways that made Mira's heart ache with love and fear. You're having a girl, Dr. Chen said, pointing to the screen. I know, Mira whispered. I've known for months. She's underweight, Dr. Chen continued, but otherwise healthy. You, however, are severely anemic and malnourished. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. How long have you been without proper prenatal care? 3 months. Dr. Chen didn't judge. She just wrote prescriptions. Prenatal vitamins, iron supplements, instructions for proper nutrition. And Mira, you need to rest. Your body has been through trauma. You need to heal. Alexander insisted on paying for everything. The appointment, the prescriptions, the follow-up visits already scheduled. When Mira protested, he just smiled. Money is meant to be used for things that matter. You and your daughter matter. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Mira stayed in the guest room, healing. Alexander worked from home most days, giving her space but remaining available. His daughter Elise would visit on weekends. Elise was 10 years old, with her father's eyes and her mother's smile. She was cautious at first, protective of her father, but when she felt the baby kick for the first time, her face transformed with wonder. She's moving. I can feel her moving. That's your little friend in there saying hello, Mira said. Can I talk to her? Of course. Elise leaned close to Mira's belly. Hi, baby. I'm Elise. I'm going to be your big sister. Well, not really your sister, but I'm going to love you like one. I promise." Something in Mira's chest cracked open. This child, who had lost her mother, was already making room in her heart for a baby who wasn't related to her, already choosing family instead of waiting for biology to decide. One evening, Alexander found Mira sitting at the piano in the guest room. She was playing softly, testing her fingers after months without practice. The muscle memory was still there, but rusty. "Don't stop," he said from the doorway. "Please." Mira kept playing. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, the piece her grandmother used to play on their beaten-up upright in Brooklyn. The notes filled the room, spilled out the window, floated over the city. When she finished, Alexander was crying silently. "That was beautiful. You're extraordinary, Mira. Whatever happened to you, whoever hurt you, they were wrong about you. Do you understand that? They were wrong." Mira turned to face him. "I want to play again. Real concerts, not just for myself. I want my daughter to see that her mother is more than what her father said she was. Then you'll play again." Alexander sat beside her on the piano bench. "I'll help you. I know people, festival organizers, symphony boards, concert hall directors. Your name still carries weight in those circles. People remember you. They've wondered where you went. I went into a marriage that swallowed me whole. Well, now you're out, and it's time to remind the world what they've been missing." Mira went into labor on a Thursday, 5 weeks later. Her water broke at 3 in the morning. She woke up to wetness and cramping and immediate panic. Alexander, her voice was sharp with fear. He was in her room within seconds, taking one look at the situation and going into action. "We're going to the hospital right now. Can you walk?" "I think so." He grabbed the hospital bag they'd packed weeks ago, helped her to the car, and drove through. Empty streets with the kind of calm focus that kept Mira from completely losing it. "It's too early," Mira gasped between contractions. "She's not supposed to come yet. Something's wrong. Babies come when they're ready. You're both going to be fine. I promise." "You can't promise that." "Then I'll stay with you through whatever happens." "You're not alone, Mira. Not anymore." The labor was fast and brutal. 17 hours of pain unlike anything Mira had ever experienced. It felt like her body was being ripped apart from the inside. But Alexander was there through every contraction, holding her hand, coaching her breathing, telling her she was strong even when she screamed that she couldn't do it. "Yes, you can. You survived being thrown away. You survived homelessness. You survived your body nearly shutting down. You can survive this. Push, Mira. Push." And she did. She pushed with everything she had. Pushed until she thought she would die from the effort. Pushed until she heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby's cry. "It's a girl," Dr. Chen announced. "You have a daughter." The nurse placed a tiny screaming perfect baby on Mira's chest. She was so small, so fragile, 5 pounds 14 ounces, but she was alive. She was breathing. She was real. "Hi, baby. Hi, Lucia. I'm your mama. I'm here." Mira was crying so hard she could barely see. The baby stopped crying when she heard her mother's voice. Her tiny eyes tried to focus. Her miniature hand wrapped around Mira's finger with surprising strength. "She's perfect," Alexander whispered. He was crying too. This man, who had no biological connection to this child, but was weeping like she was his own. "Would you like to hold her?" Mira asked. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." The nurse took Lucia and placed her in Alexander's arms. He stared down at the tiny girl with an expression of pure awe. "Hello, Lucia. I'm Alexander. I'm going to take care of you and your mama. I'm going to make sure you grow up knowing you're wanted and loved and valued. That's my promise to you, little one." Lucia yawned, a tiny gesture that made both adults laugh through their tears. "Thank you," Mira said softly, "for being here, for being you, for proving that good men still exist. Thank you for letting me be part of this, part of your life, part of her life." In that hospital room, with a newborn baby sleeping peacefully between them, something shifted. Something that had been growing for months finally crystallized into certainty. They were a family, not through marriage or blood, but through choice, through showing up, through love that was offered freely and accepted gratefully. If you're crying right now, you're not alone. This is what real love looks like. Not romance, not grand gestures, just showing up when someone needs you most. If this story is touching your heart, hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment telling me, have you ever been saved by an unexpected kindness? And smash that like button if you believe Mira deserves every good thing coming her way. Because what happens next, her transformation from survivor to unstoppable, is about to begin. 6 months after Lucia was born, Alexander made a proposal. Not marriage, business. They were sitting in his office at the Meridian Hotel. Lucia was asleep in a bassinet nearby. Alexander had been unusually quiet all morning, clearly working up to something. I have an idea, he finally said, and I need to know what you think. Okay. My hotel business is successful, traditional luxury hospitality, but I've been thinking about something different. What if we created hotels specifically designed for artists? Residency programs for musicians, painters, writers, concert halls built into the properties, practice rooms with perfect acoustics, studios with natural light, art and hospitality combined. Mira leaned forward, intrigued. That's brilliant. Your vision, my infrastructure. We'd be equal partners. 50-50 ownership. A new company. Moreau Castellano, Arts and Hospitality. Alexander, I'm a violinist, not a businesswoman. You're an artist who understands what artists need. That's more valuable than an MBA. You know what it's like to need space to create. You know what it's like to be undervalued by traditional institutions. You can design experiences that actually serve artists instead of just profiting from them. It would require massive investment. I'm aware it could fail spectacularly. Most worthwhile things carry risk. Mira looked at him. This man who had saved her life, who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself, who was now offering her equal partnership in a multi-million-dollar venture. Why me? Because you're brilliant. Because you see things other people miss. Because I trust you. And because I think together we could build something extraordinary. Okay, Mira said. Let's do it. They shook hands. Then Alexander pulled her into a hug. We're going to change the world. Mira believed him. The first property opened in Vienna 18 months later. A historic building converted into an artist residency hotel. Mira had designed every detail. The music rooms with acoustics that made instruments sing. The art studios with skylights that tracked the sun. The communal spaces where artists could collaborate. The concert hall that seated 200 and had been built specifically for chamber music. Opening night, sold out within hours. Applications for residencies flooded in from around the world. The press called it revolutionary. Finally, a hotel that understands artists aren't just guests. They're the heart of culture. The second property opened in Paris 6 months later. Then Tokyo. Then London. Each one more successful than the last. By year 3, Moreau Castellano Arts and Hospitality was valued at $800 million. By year 4, they took the company public. The IPO raised $2.3 billion. Overnight, Mira's 50% stake was worth $1.15 billion. She was officially a billionaire. Mira stood on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange the day their company went public, watching the numbers climb on the screen. Alexander stood beside her, Elise on his other side, both of them beaming. Lucia, now 3 years old, was with the nanny, too young to understand what was happening but already loved beyond measure. Can you believe this? Alexander asked. No, Mira admitted. 2 years ago, I was homeless. Now, I'm a billionaire. It doesn't feel real. It's real, and you earned every bit of it. Alexander squeezed her hand. I'm so proud of you. That night, Alexander proposed. Not a business partnership this time. Marriage. They were on the balcony of his penthouse, the same balcony where he'd first told her she could stay. The city lights spread out before them like a carpet of stars. Mira Castellano, you brought my family back to life. You gave Elise a mother figure when she thought she'd never have one again. You gave me a reason to believe in love, after I thought that part of my life was over. You're my partner in every sense of the word. Will you marry me? Will you let me be your husband and Lucia's father, and build this beautiful, chaotic life with me forever?" Yes, 1,000 times yes. The ring was perfect, simple, elegant, everything Mira was. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony. Just family and close friends. Elise was the maid of honor. Lucia was the flower girl. It was nothing like Mira's first wedding, the cathedral full of people she didn't know, the expensive dress that had made her feel like a costume. This was real. This was chosen. This was love. Around the same time Mira was building her empire, Dante Castellano's world was falling apart. His tech company made a series of catastrophic investments. His board lost confidence. His stock price crashed. And Vivienne, the woman he'd chosen over Mira, revealed her true nature. She was a con artist, professional, practiced, devastating. She'd been scamming wealthy men for years, wanted for fraud in 3 states. She'd gotten pregnant deliberately, trapped Dante into a relationship, and slowly drained his accounts. When his money started running out, she vanished in the middle of the night with suitcases full of jewelry, designer clothes, and every dollar she could steal. Dante tried to track her down, discovered she'd maxed out credit cards in his name, destroyed his credit, left him with a son he barely knew, and custody battles he couldn't afford. Castellano Technologies filed for bankruptcy 18 months after Vivienne disappeared. The company Dante had built was liquidated. His reputation was destroyed. Every tech firm in the city rejected his applications. He ended up in a modest apartment in Queens, working freelance contracts for a fraction of what he used to make, drowning in debt and regret. When Moreau Castellano Arts and Hospitality announced they were acquiring tech infrastructure to improve their digital guest experience, Dante saw an opportunity. His technology, the booking systems and customer management software he'd built, was exactly what they needed. He reached out through official channels, offered his company's remaining assets, the patents, the software, everything. He needed the money, needed the job, needed anything to keep him from complete financial ruin. The acquisition team reached out, said the CEO wanted to handle the deal personally, scheduled a meeting at Moreau Tower. Dante prepared his pitch, practiced his presentation, put on his best suit. He walked into that building with no idea that his entire world was about to shift on its axis again. Okay, this is the moment we've all been waiting for. If you think Dante is about to get exactly what he deserves, smash that like button. Drop a comment saying karma if you believe what goes around comes around. Subscribe to Cedar Light Love Stories because this confrontation is going to be legendary. And share this video with someone who needs to hear that their ex's karma is coming. Because Mira is about to walk into that boardroom and change Dante's life forever. Dante stood in the conference room on the 50th floor of Moreau Tower, trying to calm his racing heart. Everything depended on this meeting. The child support payments crushing him, the legal fees from fighting Vivienne's fraud case, the debt collectors calling daily. This job was his last chance before complete financial collapse. The receptionist had said the CEO would see him personally. He assumed it would be Alexander Moreau. Maybe his wife would be there too, but Dante wasn't worried about that. In his mind, Mira had disappeared into poverty and obscurity 4 years ago. He'd never once considered she might have survived, let alone thrived. The door opened. Dante stood, hand extended, ready to make a good impression. But the person who walked through that door made his hand drop to his side like dead weight. Mira. She looked completely different. 4 years had transformed her entirely. Her hair was styled professionally. She wore a designer suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Diamond earrings caught the light. A wedding ring, massive and sparkling, adorned her finger. But it was her presence that had changed most. She walked with confidence that made the air shift around her. She radiated power. Alexander Moreau walked beside her, his hand resting protectively on her back. They both wore wedding rings. Dante's face drained of all color. "Mira?" His voice came out strangled. "That's Mrs. Moreau Castellano to you, Mr. Castellano." Mira's voice was ice and steel. "Have a seat." His knees nearly gave out. He grabbed the edge of the conference table and collapsed into the chair. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Mira sat at the head of the table. The power position. Alexander sat beside her. Equal partners. Dante sat across from them, subordinate and small. "Let's discuss the terms of your employment," Mira said, her voice perfectly professional. "Mira, I had no idea you were," Dante started. "Mrs. Moreau Castellano," she corrected sharply. "We're not friends. We're not acquaintances. I'm your employer. You'll address me accordingly." He flinched like she'd slapped him. Mira laid out the terms with clinical efficiency. He would head the tech integration division, report directly to her, weekly meetings, quarterly performance reviews, salary of $85,000 per year, no equity, no signing bonus, standard benefits. Dante used to make $2 million a year. This was a 95% pay cut. But he had no leverage, no other options, just crushing need. "My wife is being generous, Castellano," Alexander said, his voice cold. "Personally, I would have let you file bankruptcy, but she believes your technology has value, so we're giving you a chance to prove you can contribute something meaningful." The implication hung heavy in the air. "You've never contributed anything meaningful before. How did this happen?" Dante asked, his voice barely a whisper. "The last time I saw you, you were—" He stopped himself, realized how cruel it would sound. "Homeless?" Mira finished for him, pregnant, desperate. "Is that what you were going to say?" Silence. "The last time you saw me, I was at my lowest. But that wasn't the end of my story, Dante. It was the beginning." Mira leaned forward, her eyes locked on his. "You threw me away because I wasn't impressive enough for your world. You told me I was an embarrassment, that I would hold you back. You kicked me into the street while I was carrying your daughter." Each sentence hit him like a hammer blow. He was visibly crumbling. "But here's what you didn't understand. My value was never determined by your ability to see it." Mira's voice was strong, certain. "I built a billion-dollar company. I'm on the board of Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall, and the Vienna Philharmonic. I've performed for presidents and prime ministers. I have a family who loves me, a husband who cherishes me, and 4 children, who will grow up knowing their worth isn't tied to someone else's opinion." 4 children. The words stabbed Dante. She'd had more children, built a whole family, without him. "I didn't need you to succeed," Mira continued. "I just needed you to get out of my way." Tears were streaming down Dante's face. "I made a mistake. The worst mistake of my life. Vivienne, she wasn't who I thought. She destroyed everything. She didn't destroy you, Dante. You destroyed yourself." Mira's expression didn't soften. "She just helped you do it faster." "Our daughter," Dante choked out. "Lucia, can I see her?" Mira's expression hardened. "You have court-mandated visitation once a month. You've used it twice in 4 years. You don't get to suddenly care because your life fell apart." "Lucia calls me Papa," Alexander added quietly. "She doesn't know you, and that's your choice, not ours." Mira slid the employment contract across the table. "You have 2 options. Sign this and work for me, or walk out and file bankruptcy. Choose." Dante stared at the contract. His hand shook as he picked up the pen. He had no choice, no other options, no path forward except through her mercy. He signed. "I'll be the best employee you have," he whispered. "I promise." "I don't want your promises, Dante. I want results." Mira stood, signaling the meeting was over. "Now get out. I have actual important meetings today." Dante left the conference room on shaking legs. He took the elevator down 50 floors, each one a hammer blow to his pride. He sat in his car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, unable to drive, just sitting there processing what had happened. Everything he'd thought about Mira was wrong. She wasn't too small for his world. He had been too small for hers. She hadn't needed him to elevate her. She was always meant to soar. He'd just been weighing her down. He thought about Vivienne, who'd taken everything and disappeared. He thought about Mira, who'd built everything from nothing. He'd chosen wrong, and now he would spend every day being reminded of exactly how wrong. Back in the conference room, Mira sat down heavily. Alexander pulled her close. You okay? I'm perfect. I've been waiting 4 years for that. She was shaking from adrenaline, but also relieved. She'd needed him to see, not for revenge, but for closure, for proof that she'd survived, for validation that she was always enough. I'm so proud of you, Alexander said. You didn't gloat. You didn't humiliate him. You just showed him the truth. He humiliated himself. I just gave him a mirror. Mira leaned into her husband. He doesn't live in my head anymore. He's just an employee, nothing more. Alexander kissed her forehead. I love you. I love you too. Now, let's go home. Lucia has a dance recital tonight, and I promised we'd be front row. The contrast was stark. Dante had missed everything. Alexander showed up for everything. 2 years passed. Dante proved everyone wrong by becoming an excellent employee. He kept his head down, did outstanding work, never asked for special treatment. In meetings with Mira, he was always professional, always respectful, always aware of the dynamic between them. He also started showing up for supervised visitations with Lucia, every month, without fail. The little girl was cautious at first, this stranger who claimed to be her biological father. But slowly, over months of consistent presence, she warmed to him. She would never call him Dad. That name belonged to Alexander. But she started calling him Dante, started asking questions about where he lived, what he did, why he hadn't been around before. He told her age-appropriate truths, that he'd made mistakes, that he'd hurt her mother, that he was trying to do better now. One evening, at a supervised visit in a park, 5-year-old Lucia looked up at him with her mother's eyes. Do you love my mama? Dante was quiet for a long moment. I did once, but I didn't love her the way she deserved. I didn't see how special she was until it was too late. Papa sees it. Yes, Dante said, his throat tight. Your papa sees it. He's a much better man than I am. Mama says everyone can get better if they try. Your mama is a very wise woman. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was something, a thread of connection between a man and the daughter he'd rejected, a possibility that he could be a small part of her life, even if he'd lost the right to be a central figure. Meanwhile, Mira's life continued to flourish. The company expanded to 20 properties across 4 continents. She still performed regularly, her concerts selling out within hours. She and Alexander had twins, a boy and a girl, bringing their family to 6 people. Their home was chaos and beautiful. Elise, now 16, was applying to engineering programs at MIT and Stanford. Lucia was thriving in kindergarten, already showing an aptitude for music that made Mira's heart sing. The twins were toddlers, destroying everything they touched and filling the house with laughter. One evening, Mira stood on the balcony of their brownstone in Brooklyn, the same neighborhood where she'd grown up, where her grandmother had played violin on street corners, where everything had begun. They'd bought the building that used to house her grandmother's apartment and converted it into a home with a dedicated music room, a playroom for the children, a garden where they grew vegetables. Alexander joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? He asked. How far we've come, how different everything is. Do you ever miss it? The other life? Not even a little bit. Mira turned to look at him. That was someone else's dream. This you, the children, my music on my terms, this is mine. I love you, he said, like he said every day, like he'd never stop saying, I love you too. Above them, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. Inside, their children slept safely. Tomorrow, Mira would teach a master class at Juilliard. Alexander would meet with architects about a new property in Vienna. Lucia would go to school. Elise would ace her physics test. The twins would learn new words and break something valuable and be forgiven instantly. Life would continue, beautiful and ordinary and extraordinary all at once, because Mira Moreau Castellano had learned the most important lesson of all. You are not defined by who discards you. You are not diminished by who fails to see your value. You are defined by how you rise. And she had risen like a phoenix, not despite the fire, but because of it. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to Cedar Light Love Stories for more powerful transformations like this one. Hit that like button if you believe in comebacks. Comment, "I am enough" if you needed to hear Mira's story today. Share this with someone who's currently in their valley, someone who needs to be reminded that mountains are coming. Your worth was never up for debate. Some people just don't deserve to be the judge. The ones who threw you away made room for the ones who will cherish you. Rock bottom can be the foundation you build an empire on. Success isn't about revenge. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs it. Remember, you're not defined by your lowest moment. You're defined by every moment you chose to keep breathing after, every moment you chose to try again, every moment you chose to believe you deserved better. Mira was told she wasn't enough. She was thrown away while pregnant. She was left with nothing. But she didn't let that become her ending. She let it be her beginning. And now, she's a billionaire CEO, a renowned violinist, a wife to a man who cherishes her, a mother to 4 children who will never doubt their worth, and living proof that the people who underestimate you are just making room for your transformation. So if you're in your valley right now, if you're in the rain with nowhere to go, if someone has told you you're not enough, hear this. They're wrong. You are enough. You've always been enough. And one day, you're going to look back at this moment and realize it wasn't your ending. It was just the chapter before everything changed. Keep rising. Keep building. Keep becoming. The best chapters are still being written. Until next time, this is Cedar Light Love Stories reminding you that your story isn't over, not even close. God bless you all.